My name is Juliette Monroe, and on my 25th birthday, I stood encased in silken lace, a bride being prepared for market. In a few hours, I was to marry Damien Croft, a reclusive shipping magnate old enough to be my father. To my own father, Edward Monroe, this was the culmination of his life's ambition, the ultimate trade that would restore our family's faded glory. He was practically giddy, celebrating the massive financial payout he believed was imminent. He had spent weeks boasting about the intricate marriage contract, a document he saw as his masterpiece. What he didn't know, what his arrogance and greed made him incapable of seeing, was that the true masterpiece was a single, secret clause buried deep within the legalese. A dowry clause. He thought he was selling his daughter to save his fortune. He was about to discover he had just signed away his entire world. Before I continue my story, I need to ask for your help. You can support this channel and help us create more stories like this by hitting the like button and subscribing right now. It's a simple gesture that costs you nothing, but for us, it's incredibly significant. Every like and subscription tells the YouTube algorithm that this content is relevant, which helps us reach more people who love these stories of justice. Now that you've done that, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's get back to how my father's greedy scheme spectacularly backfired. I grew up on the Upper East Side of New York City, in a sprawling pre-war apartment overlooking Central Park. From the outside, we were the picture of old money. The Monroe name still carried weight in certain circles. We had the right address, wore the right clothes, and attended the right charity galas. But it was all a lie. My father, Edward, was a former Wall Street trader who had lost nearly everything in a series of disastrously risky investments years before I was born. He spent his life chasing that former glory, drowning the family in debt to maintain the illusion of wealth. Our lives were a performance, and the cost of admission was our integrity. My passion was a source of constant irritation for him. I loved documentary filmmaking and investigative journalism. I spent my free time with the camera, telling the stories of people the world overlooked. He despised it. He would find me editing footage in my room and call it a squalid little hobby. He told me a Monroe woman's job was not to document the lives of the unfortunate, but to secure her own place among the fortunate. My mother, Caroline, was his loyal second in command, a woman whose own identity had long been subsumed by my father's ambition. She enforced his vision, ensuring I was always perfectly dressed, perfectly mannered, and perfectly prepared for my one true purpose, to marry well. They saw my passion not just as useless, but as dangerous. It gave me a sense of perspective and empathy that was completely at odds with their worldview. They feared it would make me unmarketable. They systematically crushed my ambition, forbidding me from applying to film school and instead enrolling me in art history and business courses they felt were more suitable for a future socialite. The pressure intensified as I entered my 20s. My father's debts were mounting, and his desperation became a palpable force in our home. That's when he set his sights on Damien Croft. Damien was a legend in the world of international logistics, a mysterious, intensely private billionaire with a vast global empire. He was also a widower with no children. To my father, he wasn't a man, he was a solution. He was a walking, talking bailout. My father leveraged a long-forgotten business connection to secure an introduction. And from that moment on, the Croft Project, as he called it, became our family's sole focus. My life became a strategic campaign to make myself appealing to a man I had never even seen a picture of. Our first meeting was a formal dinner at an exclusive members-only restaurant. Damien Croft was polite, intelligent, but emotionally unreadable. He spoke to my father about global markets and to my mother about art. But when he turned to me, his questions were surprisingly direct. He didn't ask about my hobbies. He asked for my opinion on a recent financial scandal I had been following for a documentary project. Forgetting my role, I gave him an honest, passionate analysis of the corporate greed involved. My parents shot me furious looks from across the table, but Damien just listened, his expression unreadable. Our courtship consisted of a dozen such sterile, formal meetings. It was clear to me that this was not about romance, it was a negotiation. Damien was evaluating an asset, and I was the asset. During this time, I felt utterly trapped. My father reminded me daily that the family's survival, our home, our name, everything rested on my compliance. He painted a grim picture of bankruptcy and social ruin if I failed. The marriage contract arrived via courier one Tuesday morning. It was a document over 200 pages long, bound in dark blue leather. My father was ecstatic. He spread it across the dining room table, pointing out clauses related to joint family ventures and trusts, interpreting them all as signs of Damien's commitment to merging our dynasties. He was so blinded by the verbal promises of a payout that Damien's lawyers had hinted at, a payout that would happen after the wedding, that he failed to see the danger. I begged him to let me have a lawyer friend review it. My friend was a pro bono lawyer I'd met while working on a documentary, a sharp woman who specialized in fighting for the underdog. My father exploded in a rage. He accused me of trying to sabotage the deal of a lifetime, of being selfish and ungrateful. He told me that his lawyers had glanced at it and that was enough. He informed me that questioning the integrity of a man like Damien Croft was an insult and that I would do nothing to jeopardize the deal. He made it clear I would go through with this or he would disown me completely, leaving me with nothing. Defeated, I acquiesced. The trap was set, and my own father was about to walk right into it. Our wedding was one of the most talked about social events of the year in New York. The ceremony was held at a grand, historic landmark with flowers flown in from Holland and a guest list that read like a who's who of global finance. My father was in his absolute glory, playing the part of the proud patriarch who had secured a brilliant match for his beloved daughter. As I walked down the aisle, I felt nothing. I was an actress in the final scene of a play I never wanted to be in. After the ceremony, a small group of us convened in a private wood-paneled chamber to sign the final papers. It was me, Damien, my ecstatic parents, and Damien's team of stone-faced lawyers. My father was practically vibrating with anticipation. He signed his section of the massive marriage contract with a triumphant flourish of the pen. Then it was my turn. My hand trembled as I signed my name, sealing my own fate. As my father reached for the bottle of champagne a waiter had brought in, Damien's lead lawyer calmly held up a hand. She told him there was one final matter, the activation of the dowry and asset consolidation clause, which his signature had just triggered. My father looked confused. The lawyer, with chilling precision, turned to the relevant page and explained. She clarified that by signing the contract, he, Edward Monroe, had agreed to place all his personal and business assets, the apartment, his stock portfolio, his art collection, everything, into a marital trust.
My mother smiled, assuming this was a formality, but the lawyer wasn't finished. She continued, explaining that the contract further stipulated that the primary and sole discretionary trustee of this fund, with the absolute power to manage, liquidate, or redistribute all assets within it, is his newly married daughter, Juliet Monroe. The color drained from my father's face. My mother let out a small, strangled gasp. My father stammered, asking what it all meant. It was Damien who answered, his voice devoid of any warmth. He finally revealed his story. He explained that my grandfather, my mother's father, had been his mentor and dearest friend, the man who gave him his start in business. He then recounted in cold, excruciating detail how my father, Edward, had swindled my grandfather in a shady investment deal decades ago, a betrayal that led to my grandfather's financial ruin and early death. Damien explained that this was never about marriage, it was about justice. He had spent years waiting for the perfect moment to reclaim his friend's honor. He knew my father was a desperate, greedy man, and he had used that greed as the bait. He had seen that I, unlike my father, possessed my grandfather's integrity. This entire elaborate scheme was designed to strip my father of his ill-gotten gains and place them in the hands of the rightful heir, me. The verbal promises of a payout were a lie, never put in writing. My father's own arrogance and his refusal to read the fine print had been his undoing. He had just willingly signed away his entire world to the daughter he had tried to sell. My father collapsed into a chair, speechless. My mother began to sob, not from sadness, but from the fury of a thwarted con artist. They were escorted from the room by discreet security guards, their world shattered. In the quiet that followed, Damien offered to have the marriage annulled immediately, explaining it was a tool to empower me and that I was now completely free. I did not become my father. I did not hoard the power or use it cruelly. I used it with the precision of an investigative journalist. I had my lawyer friend oversee the trust. We sold the apartment and the art to pay off the massive debts my father had hidden, saving the Monroe name from the disgrace of bankruptcy, but leaving them with nothing. I gave them a small, fixed sum of money, enough to live a modest life far from the society they worshipped, and then I cut them off completely. With my newfound freedom and resources, I established a foundation to fund the kind of fearless documentary filmmaking I had always dreamed of, producing films that expose the very kind of financial corruption my father had embodied. My father tried to trade my life for his financial salvation. Instead, his greed led him to sign the document that became his ruin and my liberation. The ultimate revenge wasn't just taking his money, it was taking back my story and using the power he inadvertently gave me to become the woman he had tried so hard to suppress. If this story of poetic justice gave you the satisfaction you were looking for, then do your part to support our community of storytellers. Smash that like button if you haven't already. It's a simple click for you, but it's a massive signal to YouTube that you want to see more content like this. And if you want to ensure you never miss a story of justice being served, subscribe and turn on all notifications. It costs you nothing, and it means the world to us. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done with the power my father accidentally gave you? Would you have shown mercy, or would you have made him pay for every last sin? Let me know your detailed plan for revenge in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.